shouted overhead, and Celia glanced up at the ceiling in alarm. The steps moved across the floor, and a moment later, Celia heard someone large coming down the stairs. She couldn't see the stairs from where she stood. The kitchen was attached to a dining room on one side and a hallway on the other. Celia peered into the hall. The bottom of the stairs was at the far end. A strange man rounded the banister and headed toward her, frowning at his cell phone as he walked. Celia backed away from him, her heart pounding. Her butt bumped into the edge of the counter. She scrambled around it and positioned herself close to the door so she could run if she needed to do so. She looked down at her feet. Socks. Not even slippers. There was a pair of low shelves positioned next to the door with shoes neatly arranged on them. One of those pairs should be hers. But would she have time enough to figure out which pair, put them on, and get out the door? "Hey, babe, I've got a ton of meetings this morning," the man said. "I'll stop by the restaurant at lunchtime." Who is he? The man was very tall, at least 6 inches taller than herself, and she wasn't a small woman. He had dark hair cut in what she thought of as millennial fund manager style, and wore a well-tailored gray suit. He had a gym-toned look about him and altogether gave the impression of someone who belonged in a city. This impression was reinforced when he pulled on an expensive-looking wool overcoat. His shoes, Celia noted, were very shiny. He leaned close to her and kissed her cheek absently, still looking at the phone, so he didn't notice the way she inched backward. She caught a whiff of his aftershave. Something musky and heavy. Her nose twitched. "See you later," he said, and disappeared out the same door as the little girl. Celia went to the window and pulled one blind up to peek out. The man who'd called her babe, the man who'd kissed her goodbye, had gotten into a black Audi SUV that was parked at the top of the driveway. He backed down the drive and pulled out onto the road, heading in the opposite direction of the bus. An Audi. City guy, she thought again, and then wondered why she thought this. Because I live in a city and I see those kinds of guys all the time, she thought. But the thought was like a stabbing pain in her head. She looked around the kitchen, then out the window once more. Clearly, she did not live in a city. Why did she think she lived in a city? But now, finally, all the people were gone from the house and she could stop and think. The kitchen was large and had a white countertop that wrapped around half of the room and then extended out on the third side as a breakfast bar. There were stools lined up along that side facing the dining room. Celia pulled one out, sat on it, and stared at the rectangular dining room table and chairs, done in some heavy, dark wood that she never would have chosen for herself. She didn't like dark wood, didn't like the formality of it, and she definitely didn't like anything that looked like it would need regular polishing. Celia hated to clean, and she particularly hated to dust and polish. That dining room table represented everything she didn't want in a piece of furniture. "I didn't buy that," she murmured. "I have a round oak table." Again, there was a little stabbing feeling between her eyes, and she rubbed the spot with her forefinger. Obviously, she didn't have a round table. The two people who'd rushed out of the house seemed to think she lived there, that she belonged there. And that guy who kissed me goodbye, he did look a little familiar. He said he would see me at the restaurant. Do I work at a restaurant? She had a vague memory of her hands collecting dishes from a table, of tucking a notepad into an apron. Maybe I drank a lot last night. Or maybe I had a mini stroke or something. The only thing she knew for sure was that her first name was Celia. She stood up again and walked into the dining room. At one side of the room there was a large cabinet with glass doors on top and drawers on the bottom. The cabinet matched the dining set and she crinkled her nose at it. I hate that matchy-matchy thing. I bet all the dishes are in a matching